Hello, everyone. Welcome to Little Starlight Podcast. I'm Andrea Jaeger, your host, with co-host Adriana Solarova, and we send good energy to Karen Vazquez, our other host, who is recovering from surgery. It is with great excitement I introduce our guest, Paul Rezendes. If you've never met a motorcycle gang leader who turned yogi, who is a sought-after, brilliantly talented photographer of nature and seeking the within, Wild Within included, and an author of The Wild Within, here is your wonderful opportunity. Welcome, Paul. Honored to have you join Little Starlight for audience members and us all to benefit from your inspired sharings.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me. It's great.
And this is definitely exciting. So before we get to your Wild Within book that you wrote and your globally viewed photography, that's so extraordinary. We're super excited for anyone that does know you to just be refreshed on some of that, and someone who isn't is really going to be inspired by both your writings, your wisdom, and your photography. But before that, I want to ask you about a third philosophy. It gets cycled around a bit, and some people state it as it is wise to have 1/3 of the people in your life be peers, 1/3 that look up to you for insights, and 1/3 that you can look up to and be mentored by. Reese Witherspoon shares a thirds this way. You're going to meet 3 different kinds of people in life. She tells this to her children in interviews. She says, there's going to be 1/3 of the people who are going to lift you up. They're going to believe in your dreams. They're going to encourage you. 1/3 of the people are going to be totally neutral, and the other third are going to try and drag you down. Avoid the bottom third, she says, as those people may be consciously or unconsciously trying to drag you down. Find friendships that lift you up. Others say you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So now my understanding is we learn something from every experience. Where do you radiate on the third principle, or a principle that you guide your life by? For me, nature and animals could be 1/3 each in a person's life, and that would seem to be awesome. So what are your thoughts on what and whom is important to have in a person's life?
I don't have much of an opinion on that. I just try to be open with people, and hopefully they can be open as well. And through that openness, there can be communication. If I'm meeting somebody who I feel has a very authoritarian principle, in the back of their mind, how things should be and shouldn't be, I'm thinking I might not be able to communicate well with this person. So that's kind of what I'm looking for when I meet people. And to me, it's not me teaching them. Both have to be on the same level, and that level is openness, for there to be a real communication and a meeting heart to heart without our pre-programmed conditioning getting in the way.
That's very well said. It's like we're all teachers and students, and sometimes it's easier when everyone's a student or everyone's a teacher, or it connects well. So okay, so which brings me to, in your Wild Within book, you quote one of your mentors, philosopher Krishnamurti, and that reflection was about pay attention. As long as you are compelled to do something because it is your duty, you don't love what you are doing. When there is love, there is no duty. That pay attention and the purity of action, I do experience and understand. How do you explain it in your life? I have to say, I couldn't sit in nature for hours doing what you do while being bitten by bugs. I mean, some of your stories, the bears, the bugs.
Well, it's really an organic process, right?
Oh, I see.
Again, there's an authoritarian principle which kind of messes things up. That's always in the background, how we should be, how we shouldn't be. And when we're living by that, we're not following our passions. We're not really like, I've had this real passion about nature since I could walk. because I had a mom who grew up on a farm, a self-sustaining farm, and she knew all the wild edibles. She was intimate with nature. And as soon as my brother and I could walk, she would bring us in the woods and show us edible things and what not to eat. And she made us really attentive and sensitive to nature. And that's just organic, you know. I've always been fascinated by the natural world. And if you watch and have an intimacy with nature, you're going to end up having an intimacy with what I call interbeing, and that all creatures are interbeing. No creature is what it is alone by itself. It is what it is because of all the other relations it has.
Okay,
And
I didn't, yeah, it's a beautiful saying, but so like I love being immersed in nature. I love nature and animals. I grew up with that organicness, not quite the same way as you have, but I do draw the line. Like eventually I'm going to go to a hotel. I'm going to stay in that hotel and I'll be like, yes, a shower, or no bugs or something like that. You and your wife, Paulette, has also that organic connection to nature. Is it something that you did have to practice longer? Because you took students out, you've done this for decades, where you take them out in nature and you're immersed in it for a long time. It's not just an hour hike and isn't this beautiful? You're out of the city or away from technology. There's more to it. It is almost you have like a symbiotic relationship with nature that's a little bit more so than the average person who just loves nature and respects it and reveres it and enters it, but then goes back to their home or their hotel or something of that nature and enjoys that.
I think we all have a relation with nature. We just sometimes are disconnected and don't realize that. But we are nature. We are, all our ancestors are not just ma and pa and grandfather and grandmother, right? There are all our animal ancestors and plant ancestors. I am not who I am without everything that's ever happened in nature. So this is my appearance is in nature appearing in this form. But most human beings are out of touch with that. They're out of touch with the ecosystem that brought them to this form. And that makes us insensitive to the natural world.
So how would you suggest to interconnect with that again, or to have it burble forth within? Because they would remember that once they're immersed in it again. What are any suggestions on coming to that connection?
The best way is to me is to actually do what's called dirt time. Do your time in nature. Take a walk in nature. And the Japanese call it forest bathing. I don't know.
Yes.
And they've proven that that is an incredibly healthy thing to do. I mean, actually, scientifically and physically, just spending time in nature. Sometimes I was just taking a walk recently with my wife up the road here, and we're surrounded by miles of forest. And the smells are incredible. When you're breathing in the life of the plants. The plants are exhaling and inhaling. They're exhaling in oxygen, and they're also throwing off all kinds of pollens and stuff. And you're breathing all that. What's a kid in the Bronx breathing?
It's so interesting you said that, because exactly when you finished, I was going to say there's also the silence, and nature has a noise, a vibration. But a child from New York who came to one of our children's, I run Little Star Foundation that helps children with cancer. So he came out and he was staying in one of our facilities that he was at, and he said it's so wonderful. I can hear the nature. I'm used to hearing gunshots. He was from New York City. He's like, I'm used to hearing gunshots and sirens and all this man-made noise when I go to sleep at night and during the day. And here I hear the birds, I hear nature, I hear the laughter. And he was from New York. I was gonna say that. And this is so cool. We're like in synchronicity here. So here's a question actually from a child with cancer who he's under 10 years old. He loves what you do. I told him about you. I told him about your wife Paulette and some of the projects in photography and the peace of mind you have. And he said he had this question, and he had a first question, and he said, does Paul ever go up in the mountains? And I said, yes. And he said, okay, so can you ask him, how does he avoid getting frostbite and pneumonia when he goes on trips? So that's from JP. That's from JP, who I promised I would ask that question to you. So how do you avoid getting frostbite or pneumonia when you're on trips, from JP?
I've never gotten frostbitten and I've never gotten ammonia. But, you know, there was a saying, I used to teach these outward bound classes. And they had this saying, there was a college, they used to bring me in as a teacher. And they had this saying, there's no such thing as inclement weather, just improper dress.
Beautiful.
That answers that question.
That is beautiful. I'll have to remember that when I pack. I'm not known as a light packer, so I'm gonna definitely, definitely work on that. So the other thing is JP's mom. JP went through cancer twice. He's not even 10 years old. He's had a cancer recurrence and it relapsed. And when I was telling his mom about your book, before I said that you're a nature photographer, before I went into some of the things in your book, she said immediately, because we were on FaceTime talking, this is just yesterday, in fact, she said, he must have such peace within to know nature. And it was, she hadn't even really known about you that much other than my communicating about some of the things that you did. And so I promised her, I sent her your book, and she's super excited about that. So you have more fans growing around the world. But so now another fan's coming up, which is Adriana. Adriana grew up in Europe. Like me, she's played professional tennis. She has a double major from college, and she helps children worldwide and loves nature. So here's Adriana. I'm going to come back in with more questions too, but Adriana is up now.
Oh my goodness, this is so exciting. Hello, Paul, again. It is wonderful to be on the podcast with you. Thank you for being with us. So I'll jump to it. So in your book, The Wild Within, you mentioned we human beings have become very distracted in many different ways. Probably our biggest distraction is the thought process itself. In order for awareness to enter our lives, we need to understand how thought envelopes us, permeates us, and controls us. How do you keep balance in check with awareness and thought process?
That is a massive question. Like a couple of days. I mean, seriously, there are people seriously looking into your question. Some of them for years to understand what's going on in the thought process, which has been very beneficial to us in a lot of ways, but is also causing incoherence in some ways, which the famous physicist David Bohm and Krishnamurti would try to point to. And this goes back all the way to the Taoists. Thousands of years ago, the Taoists were pointing to the same thing. Then the Buddhists, and then the Vedanta people, and lots of other cultures were aware of what happened in the human mind that is causing unnecessary conflict and suffering. So to get to the root of that, And to try to use thought to get to the root of that is very difficult because thought is the problem. And it seems to be unable to understand the problem that it's created, doesn't even realize it's creating divisions, all kinds of divisions, that has even created a sense, the sense of who I am may really not be who I am. The sense that thought has created, yes, I'm this organism, this body, but then thought has created the assumption that I'm the thinker of the thought. I have control over the thought process. That very assumption is a division between something that thinks it's in control of thought and thought.
So what would you, go ahead.
Well, so there's an incredible identification with the thinker, the one who has a control of thought, and that identification also morphs into I'm a Catholic, I'm a Protestant, a Muslim, I'm Ukrainian, I'm Russian, Chinese, and we're fighting wars over this. And there's a lot of the pain and suffering because of this. And that's way back to the Taoists and many other people are trying to point to the essence of human suffering. But that whole assumption has its own self-defense mechanisms, and it's not open. See, we started off talking about openness, but that's not open. It's very rigid and protective of itself. So it's very hard to communicate past that. A person has to be open to that, to be the ability, and that's fearless in order to go into what's creating the problem.
How a person, do you have any suggestion how a person would be able to start being open? How to open that space for it?
The best thing I can say is, okay, so when you become intimate with the natural landscape, with nature, you are becoming intimate with the fact that there really is no separation. All things are into being. Take just a tree growing in the forest amongst other trees. The shape of that tree, although they're all different, like human beings are all different, but the shape of that tree is determined by the trees around it. So that what that tree is not separate from all the other trees. They're into being. Their differences are into being. Okay, so now if you really have an intimacy with nature and you begin to see that intimacy and interbeing, and there's a passion to really look at that, not for some ulterior motive, not to make myself a better person, but you just really have an intimacy, a real, not intimacy, but a real passion to see what's going on there. Well, if you turn that passion inwardly and become intimate with the inner landscape, like you're becoming intimate with the outer landscape, and you're exploring there, and there's an openness there, there's a real passion for truth there. Once there's a passion for truth, then there's no self-concern. A passion for truth is concerned only about the truth. It doesn't care whether there's going to be an award at the end. It's not self-concerned, it just cares about truth. And that's openness. So if you go in that openness and that passion for truth inwardly, and that will be the open window or open door that.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. My next question is one of the exercises you teach to students and your clients that you share in your book is called image tracking. A person makes a list of images they have of their partner, characteristics a person would describe him or her. Then another list is describing yourself, and a third list is what you think your partner has written describing yourself. How and why did you discover this exercise is useful? Any examples you can provide?
Well, what happens is, and to be open and honest here, when you're writing the book, as you all may know, publishers often have a lot to say. And they said to me, you have to have exercise. You have to have things that people can do. But often when people are doing stuff, it's self-concern that's doing it. People are doing stuff to make themselves better. They're self-concerned there. So can there be a seeing that in the first place? Right? Mm-hmm. If there's a seeing that, then we're learning something. But here's what happened. The reason why I done that exercise was because people don't meet heart to heart. They don't meet in that openness I'm trying to point to. Images meet. People have images of themselves, and they have an image of the other person. And if I make your image feel confident and good, you like me, and vice versa, right? So the images are having the relationship. Mm-hmm. The people never really meet beyond those images. So that's what I tried to do with the exercise, is to help people to see that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's wonderful. I'm going to try that for sure. Connecting to these first two questions and the thought process and how we should learn to be open in life in general to everything that surrounds us. What happens if challenges arise? What is your self-dialogue when challenges come up?
Okay, so to try to be open is not openness, first place, right? You see what I'm saying?
Yes, being open.
Right, so there's something here that's not achieved. Mm-hmm. But we're all achievement oriented. If you're going to learn how to play a guitar, if you're going to be a good tennis player or whatever, you need to really put your time in, right? It might not be the same way with openness. It might not be the same way with humility. We're talking about another ecosystem here, if we can put it, right? So you can't work hard and achieve humility. You can't work hard and achieve openness. You see it? Can you see that? If humility is an achievement and you achieved it, it's not humility.
It's not openness. Got it.
Right. So openness comes when there's just a real intensity to understand the truth of my life. Here's kind of what sometimes I use this metaphor. Self-concern is energy.
Excuse me, self-concern is energy. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Self-concern is energy. Okay.
There's energy there. There's energy in that self-concern. You can't separate it from energy. The energy is taking that form. And that form spends its life avoiding pain and seeking pleasure. At some point, at least I know in my life and know in a lot of other people's lives, you go, is that all there is to life? Are we just totally manipulated by pain and pleasure? So the energy now is shifting from self-concern to a passion to want to understand my life and why I'm doing what I'm doing, what's motivating me. But that was an organic thing that happened. The person didn't decide to come to the place where, like, what's happening here? It's like the Taoists called this Wei Wu Wei, action without an actor or action without action. And a metaphor for that is when you're lost in thought, which we've all experienced. And then there's an insight or a realization that you're lost in thought. You didn't decide that you were going to have that realization. It was organic. There was no decision there. But that very realization, that very insight was its own action without anyone doing anything. And that's what happens when there's that energy of self-concern changes. You don't decide not to be self-concerned. That's more self-concern.
You become it.
Yeah. So when there's a realization too that, oh, I'm going to try not to be self-concerned. There's an insight there. Oh, wait a minute. That is self-concern. But
Yeah.
the insight isn't. There's something operating in us that's beyond self-concern. But the self-concern is so strong, it pushes that away. A lot of times it just doesn't want to see its limitations.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you. I think, not I think, that was a beautiful explanation on the thought process and the even the words we choose and how they resonate within us. It's so amazing and powerful. So when you look at your life and you've gone through, you have a very rich life. You've had a very rich life with so much in it. What does happiness mean to you today? And has it changed over the years?
Happiness?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's openness. So there's an authoritarian principle. If that authoritarian principle can be put aside, then inner conflict ends. But wanting to put it aside and seeing it as bad is that authoritarian principle coming alive again. And there needs to be an insight to put that to an end, because it can't put itself to an end. It can only be self-concern. So self-concern can't put itself to an end. being lost in thought can't put itself to an end.
I understand. So
Oh,
openness.
wow.
That's amazing. Go ahead, Andrea. Thank you so much, Paul. There's so much more I would want to ask you, and we have so little time. Amazing.
This is really profound. Okay, so before I go to my next question, I want to ask this, and I'm glad you brought this up, Adriana, because and same with you, Paul. So do you consider openness love?
Yeah.
And okay, good. So I got that.
Yeah, but not the conventional.
No, I know. So, okay. So then my other thing is the truth part, because I've been kind of working on this lately. So if you have love, then if you have the love that's openness, there's no judgment or thought. It's the love. However, when you bring in the truth part, can you help me with this? And other audience members that might be like me in this situation. So truth, I can go out in nature. All of us could go together right now. We could look at one of your pictures. We could all come back with a different truth of how it permeates us and how it reflects upon us, the mirror of it. So truth is a concept that is personal in a sense. So when you have love and openness, is that universal that you're connected to, or is that just your own, or is it the combination? Did that even make sense coming out?
It should be universal, in my opinion.
Okay, so Paul, what do you think? Same, right?
Right. So yes, so it's universal. So openness is already there in all beings, not just people.
Right.
So there's an innate intelligence there. Right?
And that's
so hard to understand that, because we're brought up to think that thought is its own intelligence. Animals don't have thoughts, so they don't have intelligence. But there may be more to intelligence than we understand.
I agree.
Here's what, if you will give me the time, here's what happens to me, what seems to happen. We sit down with a young child, maybe 2 years old or something, or 3, or somewhere around there. And you know how we have a picture of, we have a book with all kinds of pictures of animals, and we're teaching it all the animal names, right? So mom sits down with her daughter, and they're looking at a picture of a rabbit. And mom asks, so what is that? Kid looks at the picture. You see these long ears, cute little face, big eyes, puffy little white tail. That kid already knows what a rabbit is. The observation already knows what a rabbit is. It doesn't need a label. Okay, so if the kid's seen it in another book or out in the yard, he would relate that to the picture in the book. He knows, or she knows, right? So, but the mom says, what is that? And the kid can't answer the question because she doesn't know a name, right? So mom says, it's a rabbit. Say rabbit. So the little girl says, rabbit. Now you know what it is. Instead of looking with the kid and saying, okay, so you see the animal, you can see what it is, but we need a name so when you see it again, you can tell me what you saw. But thought takes credit. Thought has learned to take possession of intelligence when intelligence was already there. It's just like when I was a motorcycle gang leader, and I'm hanging out, and I'm this real macho guy in a one of the top street fighters around, right? And I'm surrounded, I'm the leader of all these other macho guys. And all of a sudden there was an insight that, oh, wait a minute. The undercurrent of this machismo is fear. The only reason why I'm this tough guy is because I'm afraid not to be. And all the other guys are the same way. We're terrified not to be tough. That kind of messed up the game for me. But what happens is, see, that insight came out of that openness, that innate universal intelligence.
I was wondering, how did that come about in all that
Somehow,
environment?
right. I don't know. It happens. But what happens back then is that thought, the ego, which I had plenty of, says, oh, yeah, right, I get it. Me, I get it. I'm the intelligence. I possess, I did that. I understand. Game over. Need to change my life a little bit here. But I think I'm doing it. I think I'm the intelligence. So we're missing something. It's just like when there's confusion, we miss the clarity.
That's my next question, clarity. Okay. This is so exciting. It's like you like set the stage for each of your profound teachings and or your experiences. Because in your book, you talk about how distraction and fear and how that affects life, and the importance of being present, alive, and aware, and how being present, alive, and aware help bring clarity. And then you speak of like clarity is in front of us and in us all the time. So I'm going to say that again for audience, because this is a lot of information. I hope people just like, because they can watch these, to watch you and listen to this. For some people, this might be new, and you just keep digesting it and processing it. And then it opens up. It really does open up a whole new world of a fullness of life. So if anyone wants me to repeat that part, being present, alive, and aware help bring clarity. And clarity is in front of us and in us all the time. So, and the same thing, clarity can be that personal, but also universal. So some people might avoid clarity because it's easier. They want a different result. There's denial, all kinds of things. If you had a group that you were taking out, and nature, when you experience it, it's a little different. And I know this is, it's not just a podcast, it's enlightenment, right? But if you were going to give an opportunity for someone to obtain that clarity, what would you share? Like how that was just what you were stepping into is clarity. Can you share a little bit on that? Because fear and distraction are the opposite of it. Everything's a learning experience, but life is so much more beautiful when you have that openness and you have that clarity. So please share.
Okay, so what happens, and maybe this is the simplest way to talk about it, and what I was starting to say was, when there's confusion, there's a non-verbal authoritarian principle in the background when that confusion appears. The authoritarian non-verbal essence is they are saying, I shouldn't be confused. I'm feeling a little uncomfortable about this, and the focus is on the confusion, and there's concern, right? Self-concern. And we're not seeing the fact that we can't even know we're confused unless there's clarity. You wouldn't know. Confusion doesn't know confusion. There's got to be clarity there, but we don't reside in that. If we were residing in the clarity, if the energy was mostly there and confusion came into that clarity, then we'd go, confusion. Maybe I shouldn't make a decision right now. I need to understand this a little better. Maybe I need to do some more research, or I'm, but probably not time to act. So again, a lot of the times when there's human conflict and fear and concern, that there is an authoritarian principle there that is nonverbal, that has ideas, a condition, there's a conditioned perspective there that has shoulds and shouldn't. So I want to just ask one question. If there was no authoritarian principle, no should, no shouldn't, would there be conflict?
No,
How could there be?
no, no.
So does openness, does the passion for truth, is that conditioned? Does that have an authoritarian principle in it? And when an authoritarian principle comes into a passion for truth or openness, it's just seen for what it is. It's not, there's no concern there that should be different. There's just love there, which embraces everything for what it is, without wanting it to be other than what it is. And that's peace. There's
Correct.
no conflict in that. And even when conflict comes into that, there's no conflict with the conflict. It's
It has
not
a flow. It has a flow. Yeah.
right, it goes through.
Yeah.
There's no resistance. The resistance is the conflict. So if there's conflict and pain and there's no resistance to it, you're not increasing, you're not.
Right.
Making it work.
So it's like if something comes up like a challenge, the question Adriana asked earlier, or anyone has a challenge, it can be that nonverbal self-authoritarian, whether it's something in your past that you heard, whatever it is that regulated you there, brought in, whether it was fear, confusion, whatever that distraction, whatever that happened to, and it almost changes, it closes you in. It doesn't open you up in the sense. It's like okay, I have to behave this way. I should behave this way. I must do this. And there's friction. And if that builds up in time, it creates much more conflict than, and then I've heard sometimes people don't even know what they're arguing about. They forgot what they were arguing about, or forgot what the distraction or the conflict was. And it's like, where did that come from? So I think, gosh, this is so great. We got to do like a children's book together or something. But here I want to mention this for everyone in the audience. Like the majesty of your art is beautiful. It like if people haven't seen it, in looking at it, and we're gonna on littlestar.org, where we do the announcements, and on our Little Star Foundation website, we'll put the announcement, and we'll include your website. We'll include where you can see those. Your photography, but you can look at it online, and in your photography, you feel when you just take a moment and embrace your photography, you feel like you're in it. It's almost as if like someone might be listening to this or watching this and go, this is too hard. I've got bills to pay. I've got kids to feed. I've got a job I don't like, that I can't find another job. There's all these things, but it's what you said. It's like there's a nonverbal self-authoritarian that placed those steps in line, and you just kept stepping in them. And so take a moment and go in and look at Paul's, the photography, because the landscapes, I mean, I was showing them on my cell phone, and then I texted them over here's a boy who's gone through cancer twice. His mom literally just drove him home from the hospital from his last treatment. They're suffering financially, they're suffering physically, they're suffering in all these ways, pain and suffering. We're talking, and we've been helping for a bit, so they were super excited to see me. But when they saw your photography and the pictures, I could see there a shift too. I could see a shift in them go, wow, and a relaxation. And that's something that anyone, even if you have a blissful life, like I love what I do. I mean, the admin and fundraising part
I can
a
tell.
little challenging. I love what I do. And so, but it's like, no matter what it is, it's everybody needs to be embraced by, like what you said, nature was here first. And we are taking so much out of nature, and we need to remember to give it back and respect it and revere it. So I'm just gonna make sure everybody knows in the show notes and in our announcements, we're going to put Paul's website so you can look at these. And so I have, if you're okay, Paul, I have 2 more questions if you're okay with that. This one comes actually from the vice president of the foundation. She was mentioning the purpose of illumination of light in health and life is important. And for a photographer, light is critical. So I'm going to do that again because there were so many lights. I got so excited. Okay, so the purpose of illumination of light in health and life is important. And for a photographer, light is critical. How do you receive lightness and enlightenment in your mind and in your life? Because you have it in both. You don't, I don't think you separate it. It's not like, oh, my work only has it, and then my life, my personal life, it's like you've combined it. And that's what I try to bring to people. It's like a state of joy can be continuous. You have a state of this openness and love, and you reflect that in your work and your personal life. So how do you receive it and continue with it?
Well, it's not up to me. It's not an achievement. It's not something when I go out to do photography, what I like to do the most is sometimes I'll just drive in my van and waiting for it to come to me. It's not like I'm making these images. They're coming to me. They're creating themselves. I might be driving along and see a wetlands through the tree line, and it looks interesting in there, and it's attracting me. It's attracting me.
But is it because you have openness where someone driving that same road might be in thought, might be in thought of a to-do list, fear mode, or something like that? Is that because you've allowed for openness?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Andrea.
I can't get to the wetlands, so I might put my drone up and fly around there, look around, just explore the place. It's just like life is like an exploration, whether you're exploring the outer landscape or the inner landscape. And you might be looking for beauty. That's okay, but you don't always, it doesn't always come to you. It's like when I'm working on my photography, the way I see it, the image is creating itself. I'm sitting in Photoshop or Adobe Premiere Pro, and I have all these sliders and all these tools, but the image is telling me it's too dark. So I hit the exposure slider up a little bit.
Okay.
Oh, and I hit it up a little too much. Now the image is saying, no, that doesn't look, I don't look right now. So I'll put it back. It's telling me what it needs. So I just need to approach that image with openness.
Okay. So my next question that I had for you, which you may have just answered, it's in scheduling this special podcast, you mentioned very soon you're working on a several months long project. Do you feel nature, Mother Earth, the sunset, sunrises, and animals invite you to a location as if they know you will photograph and respect them with reverence. And you just pretty much expanded on that you feel invited, like they come to you. It's almost, but nature and animals, and this is, we didn't have a chance to go through this from your book, but you talk a lot about this, and I think it's very important for us to mention. You are very aware when you teach your students to go out in nature to be aware of your energy, your projection, the noise, the space, like how you are. I mean, I walk through a lot of airports, and people are walking through life very different than when I was a little kid. It just seems like they're noisier. It's disconnected. There's a disconnect internally, I think, a little bit more than what I noticed when I was younger with people. And in what you bring, you're very aware of your space, your energy, your vibration when you're in nature. And so is that something that's something that people can practice, right?
No.
No.
Um,
Well, hold on, audience. He's got a part
I'm
two to this.
sorry.
Hang in
I'm
there.
sorry.
Hang
You
in there.
How are you going to practice? If you're trying to practice openness, or you're trying to practice humility, or you're trying to practice awareness,
It's like an achievement.
right, you're in.
Okay, so
There's the authoritarian principle that says I should be open,
okay.
right?
So what's the verbiage? What's the verbiage on? Help me
Okay.
out here.
So is there a seeing what I just pointed to?
Okay.
Is there openness enough to see what I just pointed to? But you don't own that openness, so you can't take no credit
Correct.
because it's universal.
Correct.
All have it, we're just in avoidance. Because we just pointed to a limitation. No, you can't practice that.
Okay,
But the
true.
mind doesn't want to see that limitation. So it's in avoidance.
Can you say that one more time? Can you say that last line one more time, please?
Yeah. So if I say to you, you can't practice openness, the mind doesn't want to accept that. There's self-concern there and doesn't want to accept that.
Oh, that part I understood. You said something about a mountain and a void.
It's in avoidance.
Yeah.
Oh, in avoidance. Okay.
In avoidance.
In avoidance.
Okay, gotcha. Understood.
So if that's seen, if that comes into openness, then there's peace with that. There's peace with oneself as one is.
Like an invitation. You invite it. You
invite openness.
Yeah.
And then
it's not even like that. It's
well, wait a minute.
nothing.
Can you invite it? Is that self-concern?
Oh no.
Right. So, but see, you're laughing because there was an insight there.
Yeah.
Now I pointed
hopefully.
to something, but the reason why you're laughing is because you really saw that. There was a scene that, but it wasn't your mind, your thinking that saw it. Openness was there enough to see it.
So do you see from your heart? Like separate from the pineal gland and all the pituitary gland and your third eye, do you see with your heart?
Well, some people would use that language.
Okay.
That's another way of, but some people would use that language. But to me, the seeing, the openness is that's there universally in all beings. That's an innate intelligence. Like, there was this fellow I know who is on one of my Zoom groups, and he used to work with people who were totally deaf, and then they put implants in them, and they can finally hear. They have never heard anything in their lives. Thing is, they have the slightest idea what the sounds are. And the parents of those young people, John, Joyce, can you hear me? There's no response. Well, he can't hear, but he or she does hear. But they don't know what the sounds are.
Mhm.
It's just like a little child when it's just born. There's an array of vibrations, sounds, sensations, feelings. There's a lot going on there, but the child has not made differentiations, differences. That's that, and this is this. But there's no thought in that child yet. But there's an innate intelligence, that openness, that awareness, we have so many words for it, that's working there and sorting all that out. It's an immensity to sort out.
Is that why, do you feel, I work with both spectrums. I've worked I've volunteered at senior centers, and people who are at the end of their life cycle that are of an older age than the younger kids, they come to a peace. They come to a peace. The one thing that all the people that said that I volunteered at different senior centers, they all said they wish they had chosen what made them happy. Like that they never got to what they wanted to do because they didn't feel like they had permission. They didn't find that openness, but they come full circle to understanding that before their last breaths. And so you're saying like we're born with that. And so all this thought gets in between.
Right.
Okay, so you gotta like unravel the thought, and every experience you can learn something from. So it's not like, oh, I made a mistake. No one ever makes a mistake. It's just the learning experience. But if you get to that openness, it does open up a different kind of life that
Yes.
has the clarity. I've seen sparkles of that. Okay, so all right. So my last question here. There's when you are going on these, like this next project is several months long.
Mhm.
Is there something that you prepare for? Is there like a certain meditation? Do you take certain like what is your way of openness because you're in a different environment for several months, and do you just wait for the invitations? Because this can go towards anyone who's looking to be open to having the universe understand that they want to live fulfillment, want to live of love, and want to live of openness. So is there anything that you do? Because you have to organize your packing. You have like a 40-pound backpack, right? It might be a little different now, but like in professional sports, there's teams of people around somebody when you're at a certain level. I won't say like the lower level, you're doing all your own stuff, but at the highest echelon there, but you go to these places and they're remote, and your wife Paulette might be with you, but you're camping out. You've got a 40-pound backpack. You're looking at the stars. Like what are you excited most about this upcoming trip that you have that's several months long?
Well, I have no idea what's going to happen. We're leaving Monday. But there's preparation. And my preparation now is I have all kinds of mics and cameras. And I got to make sure I got my head wrapped around how all those different things work. Things are so technological these days. I mean, my cameras have more options than ever, and my microphones have more options than ever. And then they keep updating them and changing them. You all know the scene, and you have to keep up with all that. So the next there's only, several days, I'm going to be just refreshing my knowledge of my equipment, because I don't use all my equipment all the time, because like I'll be doing interviews. I'll be filming interviews. I'm not doing them. And I don't always do that. So I get equipment for that I don't always use. Most of my stuff's nature photography. So I have to go in and take all those mics out, make sure they're all working right. And then I got my head wrapped around it. So there's that kind of preparation, but there's this too, I should say. I had somebody that was going to interview me as a tracker and another person. We were two of the leading trackers in North America, and this guy wanted to interview us. And the other guy said, okay, well, send me all your questions so I can prepare for it. And the interviewer asked me as well, do you want me to send you all my questions? I said, no way. I don't want to know what you're going to ask me. I don't want a prepared answer. I want the answer to come out of voidness, out of openness, out of, I don't want it to be prepared. And that's how I'm going into this project. Yes, I got to wrap my head around all this equipment and I have to be fluid with it, but we'll see what's going to happen. And I'll see what the conditions are, the weather, all kinds of things I have no control over, I will have to work with. And I have no idea what's going to take place. I have no idea, could have an accident or something. So I'm not excited about it because I have no idea what's going to happen.
Okay. I can relate to that when with Little Star Foundation programs, there's a certain amount of preparation. There's a certain amount that, God in the universe is there, and there's an unknown part that you just embrace and go, okay, here we go. And I do it, the utmost I can in the preparation parts that I am responsible for, and the rest, there is that other part that comes together. So now we're going to proceed to something that I'd like to ask you if you could do, and I don't know if it's okay to even do this sitting down. So if not, and if I'm any way being disrespectful on this part, please just tell me. But now we're going to proceed to, is it gasho? Did I pronounce that correctly? Gasho, the bowing, recognizing, and expressing gratitude to the fundamental. Gosh, okay. It's the bowing and recognizing and expressing gratitude to the fundamental of oneness. And so if you would be okay, would you like to close with something? Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so that's how we do that. And then and blessings and gratitude to you and your wife Paulette. And just again, grateful everyone. Find Paul on this episode and littlestar.org and littlestarlightpodcast.com. We're on YouTube, Spotify, and where podcasts are found. So thank you again, Paul. This has just been so special, and so grateful for you to take the time and know that you have globally people follow you and are inspired by you, and so thankful for you to take the time for this and the energy.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you both.
Okay. And audience, this is so great. I'm so glad we can all do this together in this connection, and again, blessings, and look forward to maybe catching up later in the year to see how you're doing, see how maybe we can help bring more audience to what you're doing as well, because every person that gets to know a little bit more about you, and it certainly makes for a brighter and better world. So thanks again.